Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Jalene with Joby Star Astrology. I hope you're having a great day. It is Saturday, October the 28th, 2023, and we are in the throes of the very last eclipse in Taurus and Scorpio. So this is the closing out of the cycle that began in November of 2021. So think about what was going on for you back in November of 2021 and through that eclipse cycle when the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio. And the cycles that occurred in spring of 2022, so end of April, middle of May, and then last year about this time in October and November when we had eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio. Now the nodes have moved into Aries and Libra, but this is an overlapping out of sign eclipse that is closing out the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle. And an eclipse is, it is it's a lunar event. In this case, it's a full moon. And we do have solar eclipses as well. The eclipse effect occurs because the lunar event is close to the nodes of the moon. And this is an out of sign eclipse because the nodes have moved into Aries and Libra, but are still close enough to this full moon. This is a lunar eclipse to be considered an eclipse and closing out this Taurus Scorpio cycle because this eclipse occurs at 5 degrees of Taurus and where the moon is, and then on the opposite side, the polarity of that is 5 degrees Scorpio, where the sun is sitting. And it's a pretty active lunar eclipse. It is a partial lunar eclipse, and it could prove to be very active, very interesting, and this cycle could go out with a bang. But I think that for most of us, it should be and likely will be reflective of what has gone on in our life in the Taurus and Scorpio areas of our charts since November of 2021. And we've all been affected by this, even if it's just being the observer to those of us, to those people that are in our lives that have been affected, or just watching what has gone on in the world since then. And it's been an awful lot, right? The Taurus Scorpio eclipses came along right after Gemini and Sagittarius. And those were the eclipses where we saw things occur in society that changed, flipped the script really for a lot of us in a lot of areas of our lives. As we all know, things that occurred and that we experienced that I'm not sure any of us ever thought we would experience in the spring of 2020 on all through that year, 2020 and 2021. So it's been pretty intense. And when we think about Taurus, which is all about what we need, what we desire, material things, obviously, it is an earth sign, a fixed earth sign. And so it is the material things that we need. So it would cover finances and food and, shelter and all the things that we need to sustain ourselves. And we've seen a lot of changes there since November 2021. And Scorpio, the polarity of Taurus, is all about transforming those things, right? And it is an emotional, fixed water sign, Scorpio. And so I think we can all agree that we felt very deeply the things that have gone on in our society, again, either through our own experiences in life or through the eyes of maybe people that we cared about, or just looking at what's gone on in the community. So this is a really good time to reflect on what has changed for you. And when we're talking about Scorpio, this is literally what has burned to the ground potentially, that you've had to let go of, where you've experienced some kind of death of sorts, and maybe you are rebuilding, right? Or maybe spent a lot of time in the emotion of trying to transform something and let go of the fear. And Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars and Pluto, is about uncovering things that have probably been under the surface, not in great shape for a very, very long time. Scorpio tends to hold on to the past very, very tightly and in a very emotional way. And sometimes, obviously, you all know, like when we hold on to things that, historically, that things that have hurt us, Scorpio can be very intense sign, and there are a lot of very and people use the word intense for Scorpio all the time. And so, not to be cliche, but it truly is. But you can hold on to those things for so long that sometimes when the stakes are high enough, when something comes along and trips those emotions, as maybe we've all experienced something like that in the last year and a half to 2 years, when those things come to the surface, they can be just super painful. And that's the whole idea here, is that we are looking at the ugly here. And sometimes, if we don't want to let go of the past, and we've stuffed it in and we've refused to look at it, it can come out in ways that are sort of designed to force us to take a look at things and try and heal that. And so that can be through having really difficult and significant things happen to us financially. I mean, listen, we all live in a world where we have to balance out how we live to be comfortable. And our world is very much driven by by money and profit and gain, and it isn't always giving us a break, right? When it emotionally, there's not always an emotional break. So there's just so many years, I think, that we've all seen through the generations that we've lived, where what was important to society and what we had to live up to would create a lot of pressure, right? And so this has been a time period where things have been brought up. And so it could have been a financial issue that tripped something, or it could have been old trauma that tripped something. Taurus and Scorpio talks a lot about habits as a result of deep emotional issues or financial issues. And all of these things are going to look different for all of us. But it's called it's intense for a reason, right? So we hold on to the past a lot when it comes to Scorpio. And fixed signs, Taurus too, Taurus and Scorpio, they don't like to move, they don't like to let go of things. So when you're trying to break things apart, rehab things, rebuild things, get rid of old trauma and things like that, it can get ugly, right? And these things can come through physically, like I said, in terms of, it can be illness, it can be finances, it can be bad habits, things that we have to deal with, or that we could have been shaken to the core to deal with, or at least found ourselves completely turned around and facing things that maybe we otherwise wouldn't have ever really wanted to. And maybe in some cases we weren't even aware of, right? We don't always know what's coming out of the shadows. And then when it presents itself to us, it can be shattering to us in our material lives as well as our emotional lives. And so reflecting on this time period as we come into this eclipse that's wrapping things up, we might be thinking about those things, right? And it might be a time of mourning things if we lost something through this time period, or maybe now is a time, depending on our experiences, that we can actually start to begin to start feeding uh, positive plans, positive energy into what we've had to settle into or process or deal with, and trying to, you know, create an environment where we can rise again even stronger than we thought we could ever be or were before. And so we kind of might be facing this individually, but also collectively. And so lots of things to think about here. And it's a lot of what this eclipse looks like. And we'll pull the chart up so we can take a look at it. And I'll explain all of the factors that are at play here. And hopefully some of this will make sense to you and it will resonate. You know, if you are a Taurus or a Scorpio, Aquarius or a Leo, the last year and a half has probably been pretty intense, and you have probably seen things change drastically. Things pass, you know, pass away, and had to rebuild. And it could have been, you know, could have been potentially a pretty frustrating time for the fixed signs. Those are the fixed signs. Because why do I say Aquarius and Leo? Because there would be squares to the Scorpio Taurus activity in the charts, and if you have placements in any of those four signs, they were creating very tense squares, which would have forced change in some way and created, you know, possibly very difficult tension in some way in your life. And the idea is forcing change, forcing us collectively, but if you experience that, you into creating change or experiencing things, because it's an evolutionary process. It's like we can't keep things the way that they have been always, and evolve, right? So sometimes they have to be pried out of our hands. All right, so here we have the eclipse chart, and what we're looking at is, I'm gonna get my, whoops, oh look, my pen's already working. Well, what do you know? I didn't even have to set it. It was already there. Okay. We'll get this here. All right. So we have the eclipse and all of the details. Oops, my goodness, I can't for some reason see my pointer. All right, give me just 1 second. We'll get this started. All right, so we have the eclipse up here, all of the details of the eclipse. Oh, you know what's happening? Ah, you know what's going on here, guys? My writing tablet is upside down. Okay. So I'm like, well, where's my pointer? It's okay. Eclipse will pop. You know, it is right about literally just after the exact time of this eclipse that I'm recording this. So that's actually kind of funny. All right, now we're good. I'm like, why does this feel like I'm, you know, in a warped sense here? Well, you know, I had my writing tablet backwards. Okay, so we have this partial lunar eclipse today, October 28th, 2023, which is Saturday. Happened at 1:23 p.m. That's Mountain Standard Time, which is also the same as Pacific Time, so the West Coast. And this would be 4:23 on the East Coast. Adjust for your time zone if you are elsewhere in the world. But yeah, we were right like in the most intense part of this eclipse right now. And the last time I did a video on the eclipse, the Libra solar eclipse, I did it on the same day, and I was like, well, maybe that's gutsy. I don't know, maybe it is. Feeling all right. Where else would I want to be, right? On a on a lunar eclipse closing out the Taurus Scorpio cycle. I'm good right here at home. Okay, so let's take a look. We have the moon here in the sign of Taurus at 5 degrees of Taurus. And of course, we have the full moon eclipse right there, other side, the sun sitting at 5 degrees of Scorpio. This eclipse is interesting because it's busy. There's a lot going on. So we also have, along with this eclipse and this full moon, which we have Jupiter here. So we have a Jupiter conjunction to this lunar eclipse, with Jupiter there retrograde in the sign of Taurus at 11 degrees. And over here, the opposite side, we have Mars, Mercury, right conjunct the sun opposite this eclipse. So very, very active. We have Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, in another earth sign. This is a mutable earth sign, and Venus is the ruler of the Taurus moon. I really like the fact that we have Venus in sign of Virgo, giving us some grounded practicality to go with this emotional eclipse. Listen, any eclipse can heighten emotions because the moon is involved, right? We're talking about polar opposites and tension being created, right? And something that needs to be balanced. So depending on what side we fall on, we could be feeling imbalanced and very emotional. And with Jupiter conjunct the moon, Jupiter can make things bigger. Yes, Taurus is a practical earth sign. Slow and steady wins the race with Taurus, but Taurus is also very much about its own personal desires and self-esteem. And again, the things that one wants and needs and its resources. And it likes to feel comfortable. And if it's not, right, if there's something going on that's squeezing that level of comfort, or because Taurus can have a tendency to get stuck in its way or stuck in its ways. And if it is in a place of overindulging, right? Taurus can very much represent, yes, having everything you need, but maybe it's overindulgent. Maybe it's more than what you need. Maybe there are bad habits. And if something is coming in, disrupting that, it can be very emotional. So Taurus, although yes, practical earth sign, it's the bull. So it can get very irritated if it's being pushed out of its comfort zone when it's not ready, right? If it's not ready, that's like awaking a sleeping giant. So it just depends on where any one person is sitting with this energy at any given time. And if we talk about the Scorpio energy, before we get too much into the Venus energy here, Scorpio, right? I mentioned fixed water sign, very deep, very profound, very intense, very connected to the past. We're talking trauma. We're talking strength. We're talking fixation. This is a sign that's ruled by Pluto and Mars. And we have one of its rulers here conjunct the sun opposite this eclipse. And Mars is Scorpio, very strong, very pointed. Mars is about action. It can be about aggression. It can be about our bodies. Very, very intense. Mars and Scorpio can be very deadly, but it can also be very transformative and very, it can get to the point of something and attack an issue, get it handled, get it taken care of. If it's invested in it, right? There's got to be some kind of emotional investment or a financial investment. Scorpio is a financial sign. But Mars in the sign of Scorpio, very powerful. We have Mercury here, which is about the mind and communication and movement. And when we're talking about Mercury in Scorpio, talking about the mind, this is a Mercury that never forgets anything, right? And can stay very focused on what it wants. So you've got Mercury and Mars traveling together along with the sun, the opposite of where the moon is sitting. So we have it's a very powerful full moon conjunct Jupiter, opposite Mars and Mercury and the sun in the sign of Scorpio. I'll talk a little bit about what 5 degrees of Taurus represents in the Sabian symbol, like I usually do shortly, but just so that you know what we're looking at, I wanted to just point this out. When we're talking about opposites, there's a need to balance things out. This is a full moon where if our emotions are charged, if we're feeling a lack of, we're feeling taken advantage of, we're feeling intensely emotional, right? This would be a full moon where we might want to hesitate if we're too charged emotionally. We might want to pull ourselves back and not, because this is a lot of conversation potentially, right? A lot of working things out. And it could have to do with situations that we have been juggling or back and forth or experiencing in a very big way in the last year and a half. And, you know, none of this is going to be new, but any lunar event brings things to a head so that they can be dealt with. So it could just be more of an intense time. And if we've not all along been planning and processing and discussing things and understanding where we are and how we got there and how we need to work our way out of it, we can find ourselves in a situation where things just kind of, you know, come to a head and blow up with energy like this. And this eclipse is riddled with the element of surprise. Why we have Jupiter here at 11 degrees, which is an Aquarius degree. We have Mars at 11 degrees in Scorpio, which is an Aquarius degree. What do we know about Aquarius, ruled by Uranus and Saturn? It can be sudden change. It can be things that just need to move forward, no matter how that happens, and it can be explosive and things that we aren't expecting, sort of out of the blue. So this is an eclipse to really reflect, but also pay attention to how you're feeling in your body. Are you feeling heavy? Are tensions rising? I was out driving around like yesterday and today all morning. I had a lot of errands to run, and it was like the intensity for me, like on the roads, it was palpable. Like I could feel it, right? People weaving in and out of traffic, honking at each other, riding up really close behind each other. There's a lot of intensity out there, and probably for reasons, you know, like people are going to act that way, just as an example on the road, but it's probably like much more than that, right? What's going on in their lives, what, you know, all of those things, right? The things we talked about, like what have people gone through? But it would be smart to take it slow, take it easy, take it slow. Be careful with your physical movements, with driving, all of the things here. You know, drinking, overindulgence, spending too much money. This is an eclipse where if you're emotionally charged, it's like all kinds of like impulsive, ugly things can kind of come up out of nowhere. There's a lot of Uranian energy in this eclipse. Not to mention that we have Uranus over here, also in the sign of Taurus, and Uranus retrograde is the planet of change, right? Change, sudden change, but also, again, designed to move us forward. There's progress that wants to be done, but Uranus also wants us to take a look at the higher meaning of things, right? Look higher, try and understand a concept beyond what is right in front of us, right? It's sort of like awakening. We talk a lot about awakening, and I don't like to use those. I don't like to use the cliche words that we hear out there. It's just like, oh, it's elevate, it's awakening, it's this. Well, what does all that mean? Well, it means something different for all of us, right? But being aware of how you feel personally, what's going on out there, and that a lot of times what's happening in the moment may have nothing to do. Let's say it's a conflict, may have nothing to actually do with what has just gone on. So if we run into intense people, intense situations, I would say we probably want to be a little bit cautious and careful, which is why I'm staying at home and I don't really find that it's all that gutsy for me to do this video at the time of the eclipse. But anyway, as a review over the last year and a half, this is an eclipse that could quickly bring those things to the surface. So, you know, proactive people would be at home trying to unpack this, maybe unpacking this for a very long time, and having the ability to sort of ease into the changes and maybe what can we do going forward, right? The ruler of this eclipse, back to what we were talking about before, is Venus in the sign of Virgo. And Virgo is all about efficiency. It's about being calculated and smart and practical and efficient. And it's about being of service to other people and making sure that the plan is a consistent plan. Virgo rules the sixth house. It's a mutable earth sign. It has a way of being able to work things out, push it, get it into the schedule, make it efficient, and help other people as a result. The sign of service and purity and change. Very much in many ways, Virgo is a sign of transformation as well. When we talk about putting things in order, making sure things are operational in our lives, and doing that from a very intellectual space. Now, Venus doesn't really like that as a natural expression, those kinds of things. But in this particular case, when I look at this eclipse, and even when I talked about where Venus was as it was entering into the sign of Virgo, this is a very good place for Venus, in my opinion, right now, considering what we see going on in the world, and maybe as a way for us to be able to sit down and practically work through things, figure things out, whether it's financial or emotional. And that level of practicality coming from Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, for me, is very, very helpful in trying to sort of quell things down, understand the depth of things, and figure out how we're going to move things forward so that it works for all of us, right? Because no matter what's going on in our lives, right, there's somebody else involved. Virgo also is about our body and our health, and again, like I said, these things that we push down, it could be a physical issue that you're dealing with, right? And Venus and Virgo can help figure out a routine and a way through that. And how do we come up with a plan and talk to the people that are going to be able to help us sort of get ourselves back on track physically. So it can be physical, it can be work issues, it can be family issues, it can be so many different things that are going on or have gone on for you during this Scorpio Taurus time frame. But Venus in the sign of Virgo can help practically come up with a plan to serve the purpose of this, as well as to help us figure out how to move forward. So I like that Venus is in the sign of Virgo, and Venus is currently trining Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So this can be genius plans that we come up with, right? When it comes to figuring out our lives. Venus is relationships. Venus is love and the things that we value, and Venus is our finances. And in the sign of Virgo, it's working towards it, planning things out. It's practical. So I really like this. And Uranus is it's genius. It's the higher mind. It's awakening to, well, what is the plan? How can we fix this? I like this aspect. A trine means that it's free flowing. We do have, and of course, Uranus is retrograde. It will not come out of its retrograde until the end of January. So, we have a little time, and we may not see how things are going to progress forward. And it may happen suddenly, right? Between now and the end of January, something may materialize. It could happen suddenly. But remember, any earth sign is practical, and it's about the practical application of something in our lives. And so remember, sometimes things don't come quickly when we're talking about earth signs, or what we're trying to build, what we're trying to create, what we're trying to heal. So slow and steady wins the race. And Jupiter is retrograde. It's in conjunct this lunar eclipse. And Jupiter is about knowledge and learning and understanding and opening our mind and the growth of something. And in the practical sign of Taurus, this is again asking us to be patient, right? The growth is coming, just be patient. The understanding is coming, just be patient. Balance out the intensity, look deep. What do I have to clean up, purge? What do I have to merge? What do I have to heal? And how do I practically bring that into my life so that we're creating a future, right? Uranus wants future growth. Jupiter wants growth. So there's an opportunity here. I think we just need to, this is reflective to me. Now, we know things are going on out there in the world that where we can clearly see that there's an expression of, a heavy expression of very hurt Scorpio energy. And so this can be deadly. We're talking and looking at things like war, and how is it affecting our finances and our ability to provide for our families and the people that are in the throes of these things. This is history. Like I said earlier, it's like, this is old stuff, things that we haven't let go of from the past. We see all of those things coming up. Now, Mercury, Mars in the sign of Scorpio, opposite Jupiter with the moon there, which affects the environment of the earth. These eclipses and lunar events they affect the environment in the earth. So this can also be extreme weather, like the hurricane in Acapulco. And when we've got Uranus involved and all of these Uranian degrees, and of course Scorpio and Mars, which is very powerful and comes on silently. I mean, that hurricane just flipped really quick, and it was completely devastating to the city of Acapulco. So those kinds of things we can look at too. So if we're expressing the difficult side, or seeing that come out of that side come out of Scorpio, it can be very deadly, right? So we do worry about the things like the war that's going on between Israel and Palestine, for sure. But as a community, as a whole, in our lives, I think looking and reviewing what has gone on for us in the past year and a half is a good way to use this eclipse. Saturn is here in the sign of Pisces, still providing support to the emotions, and the sun over here in Scorpio. And all of these planets hit Saturn on their way into Scorpio. And so there is some support there. There is the need or the sense or the ability to create boundaries, but also to look towards what is practical, what is good for everybody. How can we build a dream or come up with a plan or a resolution that is going to bring peace, right? Pisces wants peace. for everybody. And sometimes it can be things that we reach for emotionally that might be a little bit more difficult to accomplish than we think, or we would we would wish or feel that they would be. But Saturn in the sign of Pisces is adding support to that. So there's a lot of water in this chart, a lot of earth in this chart. You really don't have a lot of air, and we don't have any air in this chart other than the South Node in Libra, which is the South Node. We're only looking to the ruler of that, which is over here in Virgo. So we don't have any air, and air is movement. Air can push, kind of, it can mutate things, right? It can help us be a little bit more flexible when it comes to what's going on in our world, in our environment, and in our emotions. And we don't have any air in this chart. So even more reason to stop, think, and realize that these are patterns that have been going on for a really long time in our lives or in the world. And planning is what is important. I want to read the Sabian symbol for, I'm going to stop the share here, for this moon. And I'm going to read out of 2 different books. And I think it kind of will put the topping, or sort of like, it's fitting, right? So I'll just read it. It's very fitting for what's going on in the world right now. And it's a good message for how we could look at these times in our lives. So we're going to look at 6 degrees of Taurus. We always round up. We're looking at the Sabian symbols. So 6 degrees of Taurus, a bridge being built across a gorge. Keyword is channel shift. So this is about healing, right? This is about reconnecting people. Everybody needs to eat. Everybody needs to live. Everybody needs to feel good about themselves. Everybody needs to have safety and the ability to express their emotions. And that is the bridge. It's interesting. It talks about a bridge, and this full moon, any full moon, this eclipse is a polarity, but this really talks about building a bridge and balancing out energies that hopefully will be something that will be helpful to everybody, right? All sides. This is about, it's funny, there's no air in the chart, but Virgo is mutable, and it's practical, and it's intellectual. So this is a lot of talks about giving attention to both sides and trying to understand both sides and merge those energies together, which is what we do when we read astrology. That's what opposition represents. Transcending limitation. This symbol speaks to ingenuity and to the fact that any limitation or obstacle can be overcome when an individual puts his mind to work on finding a solution. The image of a bridge being built across a gorge dramatizes man's ability to overcome impediments. It also emphasizes the fact that man's freedom can be limited or taken away only when he refuses to do something about an unpleasant or unhealthy situation. There is no handicap or disadvantage that can't be eliminated, surmounted, or transformed into an asset with a little clever planning and determination. There you go, right? And, Taurus is planning and determination, but that Venus and Virgo adding to that to give it some efficiency and at least some, a little bit of like context in terms of, well, how can I be of service too? Because Virgo is a service. I think, like I said, I like that Venus and Virgo as the ruler of this moon. Let's see, positive. At its highest, this symbol represents a very practical can-do attitude and the ability to get a job done quickly and efficiently. Negative would be a tendency to seek quick and easy rather than competent answers to the problems of life. The accent is on overcoming difficulties and obstacles. Solutions to problems may be found through partnerships and alliances. New paths may soon open up for you. Your greatest advantage lies in believing in yourself and your ability to accomplish what it is that you want to achieve. Prioritize. very much earth sign. Prioritize. Put first things first and keep your eye on the goal. Taurus, slow and steady wins the race. Virgo, practical application, operations, I's dotted, T's crossed. That's where I think we want to try and stay here in, looking at both sides of every situation in our lives. And if we can't do that, then hold back and pause, right? Don't let things get out of hand. Guard against trimming to excess or taking shortcuts that could turn out to be pitfalls. There you go. Avoid the temptation to skimp on quality to save money or eliminate something that may be critical to success just to save time. Acting too quickly may be regretted. Stepping stones are linkage, connection, merger, unification, effort, ambition, passage, transition, conduction, overcoming difficulties. So as we're reviewing, maybe it's appropriate this time to try and build bridges, mend fences, if we can. And if not, then just for ourselves, right? But we can see the need for that in the collective, right? It's to stop choosing sides, this side over that side, and the argument continues, right? It makes me think about the Game of Thrones. Like, so much when I watch this Taurus Scorpio axis, it's like it makes me think of the Game of Thrones. And it's like, what at the very end, the last few episodes, it's like when Tyrion Lannister said there's no conversation that's going to erase the last, I don't even know, 50 years, I think is what he said in the context of that, 50 years of pain or issues. There's no conversation that we can have right now that's going to be able to give attention and consideration to both sides. What we need to focus on is where we're at. We can't stay here, right? Because things will die. We will die. We have to find a way to come together and move forward. And I think that a lot of that type of theme is what this eclipse is talking about, definitely out in the collective, but in our own lives, it's like maybe we had to experience things died off, or we went in different directions, or it took us a while to get our footing, depending on what we were going through. But maybe it's time to emerge, right? Either back towards something that was more healthy for us, or we might need to at least build a bridge emotionally or otherwise with other people, maybe something fractured. Time to build bridges for ourselves, for the people that we love, and for the community that we live in, right? Despite our differences. I'm going to read out of this other book too, because I like this one, Taurus 6. A woman holds up a cat treat between her thumb and forefinger and then lobs it into her cat's mouth. Afterwards, the cat jumps up on the woman's lap for a cuddle. Eliciting affection by giving affection. Emotionally generous, pleasing others by pleasing oneself, knowing what people need and giving it to them in regular doses. Feeding people's spirits as well as their bodies, art and music. The Venusian, Venus rules Taurus, right? Love magnet with its power to attract and repel. And that's true. And even with Scorpio, it's like it's attraction, it's pushing away. It's, Pluto is very much like that, right? Attraction and repelling for sure. But the love magnet with its power to attract and repel. I got a little stuck on that, attract and repel. It's like, oh yeah. Forming strong emotional bonds versus playfully extricating oneself from entanglements. Move between flirtatiousness and cool aloofness. Cultivating the better parts of oneself, keeping one's own emotional and sexual hungers on a leash versus suffering from one's passionate excesses. Reaching out to those in need, especially the poor and hungry, demanding fair treatment for everyone, point out abuses, very much to Scorpio, when we talk about Scorpio and prophet and the lower or darker expression of Scorpio can be abuse of power. Pluto can be abuse of power. Um, and obviously being a money sign as well, it can represent power and for profit and greed and things like that. And Taurus Scorpio axis talks about that as well in the lower or shadow expression. So now's the time to transmute that, transform that, right? What can we do for other people? Have we felt enough personal pain? Can we come outside of ourselves and start helping one another, building bridges, right? Or pointing out abuses. Fair treatment for everyone. Belief that we are all in this together and need to unite in mutual harmony and understanding. There you go. I like this take on this, this way I use both books because it's a little bit more modern. But I love both of those descriptions of Taurus 6. And I think it describes a lot of what we might be needing to do in our own personal lives with other people, and just in general, even if it's just putting our lives together practically. But there's an emotional side here, and definitely the collective, the things we see going on out there in the world, which it's tough right now for a lot of people. But I think we can do, we can do a lot, and things can go, healing can go a long way if we take the anger out of it, right? If we try and look at both sides and build those bridges. So anyway, that's the eclipse. I hope you guys are having a good one, a good, reflective, safe final eclipse on the Taurus Scorpio axis. There's a new moon in Scorpio that looks pretty intense coming up in the middle of the month that we'll talk about. But I'm glad that I was able to get on here and talk about the lunar eclipse happening today. And we may not see the effects of this because we have some retrogrades going on, and that will be playing out through the end of December into the end of January. So still plenty of time to sort of hold back, plan, watch, wait, see who we want to merge back with, or what we want to heal, what we think we can do to balance out things for ourselves and maybe help out other people. So we have a little time here, but this new moon in Scorpio will just add to this. It's happening in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that. Will be a pretty intense one. And we're done with the eclipses for now after today for this season, but we'll have another set of those coming in the springtime. And that's when we'll probably start to see a lot of the things that are coming up now, or at least maybe that's when we do finally see, oh, this is how I connect the dots. This is how all of this is coming together. Lots of things possible in terms of, what will happen in our lives, what will come full circle, what we'll finally understand between now and the end of January, but really, and potentially into the next eclipse cycle, that starts in April. So let me know how you're doing. Let me know how, what was significantly impacted for you, especially if you're a Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, or Leo. If you have placements in any of those signs, this cycle was likely significant and impactful for you in some way, and if you're not, if those aren't your signs, and you don't have, critical placements or significant placements in those signs, you are probably still affected by it, right? We could see it in the world, and we all have somebody close to us, so we felt this. But yeah, drop down in the comments, how have you experienced this? How was it positive for you, right? Even if it was difficult, did something positive come out of it? Whatever happened, good, bad, indifferent, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Drop it down in the comments. If you're interested in getting your birth chart read, if you want to look at transits, the nodal axis, what's going on in your chart, if you just want to understand your chart, get a hold of me. My website and my email address is down below. I would love to meet you. And yeah, like, subscribe, share. I really appreciate that. Have a great weekend. Happy and lunar eclipse in Taurus, final wrapping up the cycle. We won't have eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio for 9 years, right? And then they'll be in the inverse, but we won't have eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio where we have a North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio for another 19 years. So it's going to be a little while. So yeah, enjoy the end of it. And I will see you soon. Until the next time, may the stars forever be in your favor. Take good care. Bye for now.